Welcome back to Thimbleberry U. I am John Jaggay, along with Amy Wallace from Thimbleberry Financial. Hello, Amy.
Hi, Jag.
Today we're talking tech, and if you work in tech long enough, this conversation about your career eventually starts to change. Early on, the focus is learning quickly, moving up, keeping pace with an industry that's really constantly evolving. But somewhere in your 40s, early 50s, those questions often shift. People start wondering how long the pace of the industry will last, how technology changes might affect their role, and what their financial life is going to look like if their career path doesn't stay perfectly predictable. We are talking tech. Today, we're talking about aging gracefully in tech, staying relevant, and making sure your finances support flexibility as your career evolves. Amy, this is something we hear more and more from people in tech. I know it's a specialty of yours at Thimbleberry Financial. What's usually behind this concern? Probably not a simple question.
Not so much of a simple question, but let's dive in. Early in a career in tech, change is exciting, right? There's new tools to learn, new companies, new opportunities. And that's fun because what it means is growth. And who doesn't enjoy that in their career? Now, later in your career, that same pace of change can feel different. It can feel heavy. And when it starts to feel heavy, people start wondering how long their current skills will stay valuable. I often hear questions from clients like, how long will companies still want someone with my experience? What happens if the industry shifts before I'm ready to retire? And it's not usually panic. So I think that's important to note. It's awareness that the industry evolves quickly and tech professionals are in it every day. They understand change better than most industries. I mean, they're creating a lot of that change.
True.
And so these questions are really about wanting confidence in their finances, knowing that their financial situation can handle this change. And planning helps turn that uncertainty into flexibility. The point here being that when the financial situation is strong, when there's preparedness for this change, career change becomes just something to manage against instead of something threatening.
That's fair. So let's start with the financial piece of it. A lot of people assume they're going to work into their 60s, but careers can feel less predictable than that, especially now as we record this in March of 2026. How can someone actually know if they're financially prepared if their career changes earlier than expected?
So a lot of people will track their savings, but they haven't translated that savings into what life actually costs. The starting point is understanding your real spending. Not a rough estimate, but what it truly costs to live your current lifestyle. And then separating fixed expenses from flexible ones. So housing, insurance, core living costs, those are generally those fixed expenses. Travel, upgrades, and lifestyle spending can shift. Those are the variable ones. And once that's clear, we can compare that against the assets that have already been built, the saving success they've already had. And that allows us to run a couple scenarios. What happens if someone works until 60, for example? What happens if income drops in someone's mid-50s? Another scenario we might look at is what happens if someone shifts into consulting or advisory work? That's one we hear a lot with tech. The goal isn't predicting exactly what will happen. And I think that's often misunderstood. It's like, well, what's the point in figuring this out because we don't know it will play out?
Yeah.
The goal is knowing where your financial life can absorb change and where it can't, because that gives us information about how to move forward together to either get more comfortable if that's what is desired, or to say, oh, nope, it's going to be what it's going to be. I am willing to roll the dice.
Right.
Not usually what our clients picked, but...
Kind of the opposite side of that, though, Amy. Something else we see in tech is that income can ramp up pretty quickly. People can reach those peak earnings a lot earlier than they plan to. Why is that so important when we're talking about planning?
Yeah, Jag, that's a great point. Tech compensation often peaks earlier for employees when compared to other industries.
Yeah.
So someone might reach their highest earning years in their late 30s or 40s. And what that means is that the window where wealth is built is compressed. So those years become extremely important financially. When you've got these really strong earning years, you have the opportunity to build long-term, later financial flexibility. So retirement plans likely need to be fully utilized during that time.
Yeah.
Taxable investments become really important because they're taking the extra and saving it for the future. And then equity compensation plays into that because that often represents a large portion of income.
Yeah.
One other dynamic we often see at the same time when the income's just coming in and coming in fast is lifestyle growth. So income rises quickly and spending can rise with it. Bigger homes, higher recurring expenses, and more fixed commitments, right?
Sure, yeah.
So it's this great opportunity that this income is coming in early, and there's some danger attached to it if there isn't a plan for what to do with those dollars to avoid them becoming lifestyle creep that's, if you age out, if you will, is going to catch up with you faster.
That's fair. Okay, so another big factor in tech careers is equity compensation. We have done a number of episodes on RSUs, stock options, and ESPPs. I would encourage you to go back and listen to those if you haven't done so already. Over time, these can become a large portion of someone's net worth. So how does that affect the financial picture toward the end of somebody's career, later in their career?
Equity comp, as you know, because of our many conversations about it, can be one of the most powerful wealth builders for people who work in tech.
Yeah.
And ultimately, all of these things become stock in the company.
Mm-hmm.
So what that means is if it's all being held, people are usually accumulating a significant portion of their net worth through their employer's stock. But as we've talked about in other episodes, this introduces concentration risk.
Yeah.
Being heavily concentrated in one holding means having more than 5% of your portfolio assets in that single holding. But when you work for the company, it's not just, oh, I own this much stock compared to the rest of my portfolio. It's my salary depends on the company. My bonuses depend on the company.
Mm-hmm.
And, of course, that stock that you're holding depends on the company. That means one organization is influencing many parts of your financial life. And when that company performs well, that concentration can feel incredibly rewarding.
Yeah.
And if something changes, the impact can show up in multiple places at once in a not good way, right? Income can be affected via layoff, via no bonuses. Stock value can be affected, market decline, and career stability is part of that too. So financial planning usually focuses on gradually balancing that exposure. And it's different for each person. What are you willing to take on in risk for this versus someone else? Are you willing to take this risk on if you know you are financially independent already? But unless you are financially independent, you want to make sure that you diversify and don't have all the eggs in the company basket. That's a conversation to have with a financial advisor.
Again, planning based on your specific level of risk and your specific situation.
Absolutely.
We've been talking about tech for a few minutes now. This has been in the back of my mind the whole time. I'm sure yours, I'm sure our listeners. We can't talk about the future of tech without talking about AI. A lot of people are wondering what that's going to mean for their careers. And we're not debating whether AI is going to replace all of us here, but how do you think about that conversation from your financial planning perspective, Amy?
Yeah, well, I'd be nuts to not say that AI isn't reshaping parts of the tech industry and everybody's lives, right? But historically, new technology changes work more than it eliminates it. Certain tasks become more automated.
Yep.
Change requires new skills and roles to emerge because there's new opportunity. And technical experience still matters.
Yeah.
It's skills like judgment, communication, and leadership that often grow in importance with new technology. So from a financial perspective, the theme is the same as what we've been talking about: flexibility. And the reality is that careers in tech may evolve several times over a lifetime.
Yeah.
Right? It used to be that people stayed, and I'm not talking about tech here, people stayed at a job their entire career. And we know that across most industries, people now change jobs much more frequently than that. And in tech, people are staying 4 or 5 years, typically. So there's going to be many iterations likely for our listeners in tech. And a financial plan for someone in that scenario needs to look very different than somebody who works in manufacturing, where there is a lot more stability.
Yeah.
If you will. So a financial plan for someone in tech is going to be focusing likely on strong savings during these peak earning years.
Yeah.
Because it creates resilience for the future. It's going to focus on diversified investments to reduce the dependency on that single employer. And it's going to focus on liquidity and good cash reserves because transitions will happen one way or the other.
Right. Obviously, the AI is a huge piece of this, but so is the emotional side, as with all things in financial planning. So some people are going to get to their mid-career and realize they feel financially stuck. The job pays well, leaving it feels impossible. It's those proverbial golden handcuffs. How do people avoid being in that situation?
Jag, another great question. You're on a roll today. That feeling usually comes from, I think, a lack of financial visibility.
Okay.
When you don't know where you're headed and you don't know how to get there, you feel stuck. And the thing that's getting you through in this situation would be your income.
Mm-hmm.
So because there isn't a plan, that income feels irreplaceable. And any change can start to feel risky when you don't have that visibility. But when we look at when we're planning and we're running projections to help someone figure out where their boundaries are, where they're going to be comfortable so that we can then give advice from that, people often discover something surprising. A couple of things. One of those is that their savings has already done more work than they thought. And by savings, I'm not just talking about cash. I'm talking about cash and investments.
Sure.
They may discover that they don't need peak income forever. Actually, this week, I am heads down doing planning work. And this is something that I've been running to with a number of our tech clients, just given the industry and where it's at right now and people wanting to make changes, is what if I semi-retire at a certain point in time to something less stressful?
Yeah.
And I think this is that they're shocked that, I don't need to keep making these large incomes year after year after year until retirement, but I can go to something much less stressful with a much smaller salary and be okay. The other thing that they find surprising is they may simply need an income bridge for a period of time to get to the next stage of life, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
We all have lots of stages of life, but oftentimes as we talk about them, why would we say, well, I'm in this stage and then I'm going to go to this and then I'm going to go to this? It's just our life.
Right. In Taylor Swift terms, it's what era are you in?
Exactly. So we could break that down, and if we go from here to here, we can just create bridges to get us from place to place. And that surprise that we're talking about, it's usually really happy.
I would imagine,
it's excited and it's not happy in a I'm jumping for joy, but in a I feel so much more calm.
It's an exhale.
Yeah, exactly. I can think of a client in tech who felt really locked into a demanding leadership role. And they really thought, based on, what was going on at home with kids and all the things and what their lifestyle was like, that they needed another, 10 years, another decade or so of earning at the same rate. And because there was also a transition going on with where their kids were in life, when we ran the numbers, their investments already carried much of that future plan.
Okay.
it just was invisible to them. There wasn't visibility because it was too many points of change to see where one thing was going to end and something new got to start.
I feel like there's a forest through the trees joke here in somewhere.
Probably is. They were focused more on navigating the trees, I guess, if you will, than being able to see the whole forest and how it would emerge. And that's okay. If you aren't in this all the time, that's hard to see. And it's why we actually do it in a very analytical, process-driven way. Because I've been surprised, right?
Sure.
Thinking it's going to turn out a certain way, and we need to, when I dive in, it looks very different. So in this case, for this client, the realization didn't allow them to leave their job the next day. But it completely changed how they viewed their options going forward and gave them room and space to dream, if you will, because they now knew there were possibilities.
So, I made the golden handcuffs joke a minute ago, like the key to unlocking these golden handcuffs. The goal isn't predicting exactly how the tech industry is going to change. It's just building finances that are flexible enough to handle what those changes are going to look like. And you may be further ahead of the game than you think.
Exactly. And I know what I've discovered in my 20-some, almost 25, I guess we're closer to that than 20, of doing this work is a lot of times as humans, we are happier to be ostriches. We think we are happier to be ostriches, burying our head in the sand and saying that I'm sure it's this way. It's better to just move forward than to find out this is really awful.
But the problem is if your head's in the sand, you might not see how good it actually is.
Or that you have easy opportunity to make it good.
Okay.
So I am all for us humans popping our heads up and changing ourselves back into humans instead of ostriches.
I like it.
Here's the thing, Jag. Technology is always going to keep evolving. That's the nature of technology. It's kind of its definition, isn't it?
Sure, yeah.
And career paths in tech rarely are linear, and we just have to accept that's normal. So we have to use processes that let us plan for the predictability of unpredictableness.
Ooh, that's good.
That's what we have to do. And that's what planning for tech, for people in tech, really is.
This is an eye-opening conversation, Amy, so I'm glad we had it today. If one of our viewers or listeners wants to contact you and your team, whether they work in tech or otherwise, they can reach you at Thimbleberry Financial. How?
Yes, they can find us online at thimbleberryfinancial.com or by giving us a call at 503-610-6510.
Great stuff, Amy. We'll talk again in a couple of weeks.
Sounds good, Jag.
Securities offered through registered representatives of Cambridge Investment Research, Inc., a broker-dealer member FINRA SIPC. Advisory services through Cambridge Investment Research Advisors, Inc., a registered investment advisor. Cambridge and Thimbleberry Financial are not affiliated. Discussions in this show should not be construed as specific recommendations or investment advice. Always consult with your investment professional before making important investment decisions. Securities offered through registered representatives of Cambridge Investment Research, Inc., a broker-dealer member FINRA SIPC. Advisory services through Cambridge Investment Research Advisors, Inc., a registered investment advisor. Cambridge and Thimbleberry Financial are not affiliated.